So here she is, the SP-16. It's a little beauty. It's not the lightest thing in the world, but the build quality of it is fantastic. You've obviously got 16 step buttons at the bottom. You've got your 4 bars. We'll come on to that. There are only 4 bars, which is a shame. You've got your screen, which has touchscreen capacity as well. Then you've got your 4 pads, your 16 pads, your master out, your drive, which sounds phenomenal, your low cut, your resonance, and your high pass. You've also got space for a USB, which is an absolute game changer. And then we've got some other settings and other sort of parameter knobs down here as well. So to turn it on, we just switch it on at the back. Takes a few seconds to load up. Get a nice little color light show. And it's going to load up the last project that we worked on. So just give it a few seconds. Here we go. Okay, we're in. So as you can see, we've got 16 cells on the right hand side. These represent the 16 pads on the left. You can color code them, you can change the colors, and you can see whether they're a MIDI cell or MIDI track, a audio track, or you can also link up to the AS1, the Pioneer Toraz AS1, which if I just move my camera, I have in front of me, and in a separate video I'll show you how this works. And it also links up to the Toraz Squid, which is another way to get some amazing patterns running alongside, especially alongside the Toraz, the SP-16, especially if you have hardware. We'll look at the AS1 in a separate video. For today, I just want to focus on this beauty. Whoops, the SP-16. So we're going to start a new project. As with these things, I have no idea where this is going to go. But I'm going to show you what I think are some of the more creative sides of this. It's not just a 4/4 beat machine. You can really make some magic with sounds and samples that you may not have touched for a long time. So we're going to go to the menu, we're going to create a new song, and we're just going to agree and give it a name. So we'll call it YouTube 1, create. And now we have empty cells, 16 empty cells, and our pads on the side. We can set our tempo by clicking up here and moving the knobs or using the sliders. We can also set some swing. You can tap tempo as well. You can set your quantize values. So if you're playing in either on the pads or on the steps, you can choose what the quantize value is, and you can have a metronome as well. I'm not worried about that because I'm pretty much going to be working with a 4/4 kick. We will add some swing, and then we can always adjust that a bit later. Let's work at about 128. So the next step is I want to load up some samples. So sample 1 is going to be a kick. I click on the cell, I click on browse, and I can either browse my internal samples or the USB. Now when I bought this, the guy who I bought it from off eBay, and I paid around about £600 for this. So it's not a cheap unit, but they can go for twice the price, so you can get some bargains. The guy included a USB key. Now normally I wouldn't sort of dive into other people's sample packs, but actually, you know what, it was included, and I thought, well, I could load up all my own stuff, but let's see what he's got. Now I have kind of organized the files and folders on my hard disk, broken them down into sections. But sometimes having stuff that you don't normally use is actually a great way of becoming much more creative with the sounds that you've got. We'll start off with some kicks. I absolutely love this kick pack at the moment, the F9 drum pack. There's some amazing kicks in here. We'll just work at 16-bit for the time being. Let's do some club kicks. So we can preview it, as you can hear. You can turn preview off, so you can scroll through. We'll keep preview on, and we'll just find anything. That will do. Press enter, or press the knob, sorry, it's not a keyboard. Now we can dial in our first kicks. If we don't like that, we can preview another kick. Perfect, that will do. So now I can go back and you've now got your playback window. So here, if we click the playback button or playback cell, we can see pitch options, start, length, loop on and off, one shot or not. We've got amp envelopes, velocity, attack, hold, whether it's infinite or not, a bit of release or not. And we've also got 2 effects. So the effects, I wouldn't say they're limited, but they're not 100% brilliant. They're good enough. There are some creative ones. The best one is the ducking one, and we'll see what that does in a bit. But you can, for example, if we wanted to add some compression, we could click on the effects. We're going to select an effect. We can choose the compressor. We can set the threshold, set the ratio, the attack and release, and then we could increase the gain. And we also have a mix knob as well, so that actually you have a degree of parallel processing, which is quite nice. Before, after, and you may just want 50%. Definitely gives it a bit more thump. Cool. If we went back, we could add a second effect. So we've got chorus, flanger, lo-fi, delay, ducking. Let's add a little bit of distortion. So some drive. There's a filter. Some dynamics. So you can dial in something pretty filthy. And again, we'll do a mix ratio. So if we now look at the buttons up here, we've also got our mixer, and we can see our mixer level. And if we wanted to bring that down, click on here, and we can adjust the volume both here and on this large knob. So let's bring it down so it's hitting, well, visually I would say that's probably about right. Okay, so we've worked on the kick. We'll now add in some hi-hats. So we go back to our track, click on track 2, let's come out of the mixer, and we're now going to browse. Now this is where I can come back out of the kicks. Let's go to my hats. Where are they? I'm sure I had hats. Drums and percussion, that will do. We'll find something in here. Hi-hat. That will do. Pretty standard, I think you'll agree. But let's now go back to track 3, and maybe we can find some slightly different sound, maybe like a shaker or something. Okay, let's go with a clap. 5 and 13. Now that's quite chunky and got a lot of tail to it. So I could come out of here, go to my amp envelope, and I could look at the hold and change the hold, and you can see the amp envelope starts to move. So I might like the body of it, and I might like a little bit of release. And I might want to also change the pitch. Maybe not have so much attack, but we'll leave it like that for the moment. Okay, let's go on to track 4. Go to our browser. Really want to find, let's find some toms. That will do. I'm just going to Cool. Now what we can do with this is we can start to play about with the velocity. So if we look at the amp envelope and hold down a key and change the velocity, we will see these start to flash. Pretty easy. And we can do the same with the pitch. So let's imagine we want to change that one. Cool. Now that clap's annoying me slightly. So I'm going to go to my mute option here and just undo it for the moment. So we can focus on these elements here. Okay, that sounded quite nice. Let's imagine I want a bit of reverb added to my hi-hat, bring it out a bit. So I'm going to go to my mixer, and here we can see we've got some send options, and we're going to choose the effect that we want, and I want some reverb. We've got pre-delay, room size, room time, damping. Let's keep it like that. We can always adjust it. And we go back to our mixer and we select the track that we want. So we want the hi-hat. Let's bring the volume down a touch. And now we can start to add some send. Yes, that's better. And if we wanted to, like I said, we could go in, we can change. Might just want a splash. If we come back to the mixer, before, without, and then with some reverb. So the mixer is a great way of adding some touches of reverb to your sounds. Okay, let's start to look at loops. So quite often we want to have a play with adding some top loops. Let's go back to our track. So we're going to click on Browse. Now we're working in 128. Now, of course, we could go and find a loop which is 128, but you can also time stretch on here as well, which is really, really useful. So I think I saw some, where did let's give me 1 second. So we've got some top loops here. So these are sort of organized, some of them are organized by tempo, but let's find a 130. Something like that's quite nice. So I'm going to select it and I'm going to just click it once, so it's going to play a bar. But we can hear that that is struggling a bit, okay? Now there is a couple of ways around this. You could, if you wanted to, do it so it triggers. If you want it to be a little bit loose, you could do that, or trigger it every bar. But if you want the full loop, there is an option. If you click on here, oops, if you're selected on here, you'll see the time stretch option. And you can go to resample or M-temp, which I think is, I would need to check that, I've forgotten off the top of my head. So let's play it back. And you can hear that's perfectly in time now. If we go to the resample option, it's pretty good as well. We can change the pitch as well. But that's not quite so good for me. So let's keep it on there. It's without it. You can hear the timing goes off. Lovely. Let's add another one just as a demonstration. So we go to our browser again. This time we're going to go for something much faster, so, or something completely out of whack. We'll go for a 131. That's interesting. Right, we'll go with that. Okay, we're going to put it on the first beat. Now we might like it being a bit off and wonky, but I would prefer it to be in time. So let's turn it down a bit in the mixer. Oops. We could add some effects to this one. So if we go back into our tracks, might want to filter this down. And we have different filter types here as well, which is pretty cool. We do also have LFO options as well, which I'll probably go into in a later lesson. So you can start assigning LFOs to any of the parameters on here as well, which is really, really nice. But one of the things I think is one of the best features on this is the ducking. So we're going to add an effect to both this synth and also this hi-hat, and let's get some ducking on the go. So we're going to click select, we're going to choose ducker, and then we're going to choose our track number, and our track number is number 1. Yes, we've already got this lovely ducking effect. Let's do the same on this very wonky sound. And of course, it doesn't have to be the kick, it could be the hi-hat, for example, which works pretty well. We'll do the kick. You can choose the attack. Choose sync as well. What the curve is like. The release. And the release curve as well. And some depth. So again, some sort of parallel. Now that to me is much more interesting. This works beautifully with rides, obviously. So if we find a really nice ride track, let's go into it. Sometimes that's when it's a good idea to turn preview off. Let's go into our drum hits. What have we got? So I'm sure we've got some rides in here. And the Thomas Penton, always a good pack. Crashes and rides. Something nice and splashy. That will do. Make sure this track's selected. Go to our effects. Go to our ducker. And the curve option is always a really, really interesting one. Yes. And we could go back to our sound if we wanted to. Might change the hold. And you can even automate the hold settings on individual hits. So we could which again is offering a much more interesting pattern. Let's take that one back. Might have a little bit of release as well. So you can see how you can very, very quickly build up something that's interesting, a bit unique, and offers really just lots of fun playing with it. We'll create one more element, and I'll show you the slice option, and we'll show you the scale option as well, but I think the slice option is fantastic. So I'm going to browse my sounds again. Let's turn preview off. Let's go and find something a bit wonky. So FX and textures would be great. We'll go for something like the distorted reality pack, which I love. Let's see what we got. Now some of these might be very long. Okay, I've no idea if this is going to work, but we're going to go with it. Now, normally, I'd play it, and it's going to play the whole sound. You can, of course, use the amp envelope. You could change the... And you could also play it as a scale. So you can play them back as these individual sounds if you really wanted to. But the cool thing is, if we go back and we have the full sample, if we go to slice, it's going to slice it up into different elements. Now that to me is much more interesting than re-triggering that first part of the sound. And if I go to record, there's our notes. And I might want to add some effects to this, maybe some delay. Touch of reverb. And I think probably it needs a bit of filtering as well. And again, interestingly, I can automate the cutoff for each step as well. So, really quick and easy. So I don't think I've jumped on here yet and had a play and not come away with something going, wow, fucking hell, that sounds amazing. So let's go back to our view. Let's mute a few things so we've got an idea of where we're at. What we started with. And again, if we mute the kick, if we've got the rides on as well, if we mute the kick, you're going to really hear that sidechain. So for live performance, it's fantastic, and you know that ducking element is really, really cool. So one of the things I forgot to mention, or haven't mentioned yet, is also we have drive, cutoff, and resonance. So these are brilliant performance tools. Without the drive, it sounds fine, but you really lose that oomph. It just tightens everything up. We've got the low pass, the high cut, sorry. We've got the low pass. And it's a great way to tell how much, you know, rhythm and excitement you've got going on the low end. So in this instance, I might want to bring these down a touch. And I might also want to add some sidechain. So again, we're going to get some pumping going on, ducking. Yes, so much better. Oops. And then you can start to develop your song as well. So I'm only working in 1 bar at the moment. To change this, you would go to Shift Pattern, change the length, and if you increase it by 4 bars, it's literally going to copy that first bar to the next 3 bars. And this is where you can start to do some variety. So if we took our kick, and again, you could add some velocity here if you wanted to. And you can start to work with scenes and patterns as well, in the arrangement. So the arranger is over here. You can start to duplicate sequences, and then you can start to arrange your song, but that's getting into a much bigger thing, which I'm not going to go into right now. I really just wanted this to be a taster of what this can do. Best thing I bought last year by a country mile, just to sit down and play with and have fun, but also to really build full tracks on and to use it as the, if not the backing of the basis of the drums, then also to generate some melodic elements as well, which I'll show in another video when we start to work with MIDI, and then to bounce this down. So you can't, I think you can bounce internally, but it will bypass the drive. So I'm probably just going to route this to my sound card and record the drums in one go. I think it's too easy just to bounce everything to single tracks and then get hooked up or hooked on the nuances of every single sound. I haven't tested it yet, but I'm keen to see what a final mix in inverted commas looks like when I'm just exporting pretty much the whole track as one audio file. So I hope that's been enjoyable and you've got something from it. If you see one and it's a bargain, pick it up. You will not regret it. I have had model cycles, model samples. I've tried Electron gear and I get it, but I cannot get into it immediately. And this thing is just pick up and go. The only downside, and this is a downside, is you cannot work with polyrhythms. So everything has to be to the 16th beat, but this is where the squid comes in. And if you work the two together, you can absolutely work with polyrhythms, whether they're polyrhythms of your hardware or whether they are polyrhythms of your DAW VSTs or synths or whatever it might be, including also obviously drum beats and drum patterns as well, and rhythmic polyrhythms too. So we'll look at that in another video. Anyway, I'm going to carry on noodling and I'll see you soon.